بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أفضل المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي وبعد. So this is inshallah the last session. As I said, I hope to finish by about 1 o'clock. We can pray at the back. We will fold the chairs over there and we can pray here. If you want to leave, it will take maybe 10 minutes to reach the masjid. So I'm not sure if we can all do it on time or not. I recommend we pray here, but I'll try to finish at 1. So if you still have some time, if you want to go to the masjid, that's my goal. After Salah, I'll pray here. I'll be available. If you have questions at this point, inshallah, we can discuss as long as you want, inshallah. Usually, if it's longer, I would spend the session on what are the lessons for today, what are the concepts, deeper reflections. Today, I might not be able to do that, right? I'll try to do at least the main bullet points, inshallah. Here. Let's, inshallah, resume. So we saw, with the advent of what we call the Third Crusade, with Richard and Philip Augustus, what happened and how Salahuddin did not give up. This counter-attack with hundreds of thousands of the Crusaders was the main challenge that Salahuddin faced. And again, I'm pointing out something, that it's not over that you win. You have to win and prepare for the counter-attack, which is a concept that I'm trying to enforce here. Right. So we saw how after 3 years, the city of Akka fell. The morale of the Franks were not that high. Imagine coming with all the forces of Europe. And after 3 years, all what you've taken is what? One city. How do you think they're feeling? It's very difficult, right? The Muslims are very tough. We're not achieving anything. And on the way to the city of Jaffa, even after the Battle of Arsuf, even Richard reaches there after a month of agony, only to find the city of Jaffa completely destroyed. We said Salahuddin's strategy was what at that point? Destroy all those cities, right? Force them to go inland with no support and then attack them in such, right? So Richard arrives at the city of Jaffa to find that there is nothing left. No walls, no city, nothing to do, right? And at that point, he was agonized. The Muslims are not stopping to attack, raids day and night. He cannot leave the shore. It has been more than 3 years, tons of losses, epidemic, right? So at this point, Richard decides to make a political move. So he sends a letter to Salahuddin. And this is important, right? The letter is the following. He says the following. The Muslims and the Franks are done for. The land is ruined utterly at the hands of both sides. Property and lives on both sides are destroyed. This matter is received its due. And now he's saying, all what we have to talk about is what? Jerusalem and the Holy Cross. So it's telling Salahuddin, look, give us Jerusalem and we'll end this. So we're here for Jerusalem, right? We can all rest. Just give me the city of Jerusalem. You can have everything else. And I'll go back home. That's all what I want. Do you get the idea? It's about what? Quds. You see, it's religious in nature, right? And Salahuddin, from a tactical perspective, you can say, well, not a bad deal. They all leave. It's one city. You know the mentality of some rulers. I stay on my seat. I'm good. Khalas, right? And Salahuddin is like, I'm facing a massive crusade. How do you think Salahuddin responded to this? The response is amazing. He says the following. Jerusalem is ours just as much as it's yours. Indeed, for us, it is greater than it is for you. For it is where our Prophet ﷺ went in his night journey. And it's the gathering places of angels. And notice what he says. Let not the king, Richard, imagine that we will ever give it up. For we are unable to imagine such a thing. Do you understand what he's saying? He's saying, لا يتصور. He's saying, all of us have imagination. You can imagine that you're a Superman. You can imagine that you're fighting in the Battle of Hattin, Imagination is free. You know what he's telling him? He's telling him, even in the realm of imagination, I can't make myself imagine this scenario. It's not doable. I can't even imagine it. Let alone do it. Let alone utter those words in front of other Muslims. And his response was the following. As for the other lands, because Richard said the following, give me Jerusalem, I keep Akka and Jaffa, and we're done. Right? Salahuddin's Jerusalem is definitely a not. But notice what he's going to say. As for the other lands, Jaffa and Akka, The city that you took, they are ours too. The reason you took them, because we are weak at that time. But as long as we have energy and power and Allah will, we will fight you and we will take them. Any compromise here? You see that? Any two-state solution? No, what two-state solution? It's not yours. Nothing is yours. Nothing is yours. It's not, we have this and no, not Jerusalem, not Akka, not Yafa, nothing. All of it belongs to us. And we will never give it up. And if we're weak today, we're after it tomorrow. Right? And this is the response of Salahuddin. So no deal. There is no way to make a transaction now. Right? So Richard resorts back to, okay, let's see what's going to happen next. So he can move two ways. He can either go to the city of Jerusalem inland, or he can choose to continue on the beach to head to the city of Asqalan. Following that will be Egypt. You see, there is two strategies. One, go for Jerusalem. The second, go for Egypt. And the commanders of Salahuddin told him, look, we can't defend both cities. It's either Jerusalem or Asqalan. We don't have enough forces, and there are too many of them. You choose. And Salahuddin, of course, the choice is Jerusalem. What about the city of Asqalan? It's a major city. The scholars told him, the only solution is you have to destroy the city of Asqalan. And Salahuddin was, Asqalan is a big city, right? This is Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani's city. It's a major, big city in the Muslim world. And everybody agrees it's not doable. That's the only strategy. And Salahuddin goes himself. And Ibn Shaddad describes, he was in tears. And he tells Ibn Shaddad the following: losing all my children, all of them, that they die, is less painful than removing one stone from the city of Asqalan. But what can I do? There is no other. This is the best strategy, as the strategist and the scholars said. This is the only best action I can do. I have to demolish the city. And they burn and destroy the city of Asqalan. Now, Richard is very disturbed because there is no base in the beach. Every city he goes to, there is nothing. Ground, ground, ground. His only recourse now is what? You have to go inland for Jerusalem. And Salahuddin, his strategy was what? He wanted him to go inland. Why? You don't have the Mediterranean to protect you. Once you go inland, we'll cut your supply line. You're isolated, and we can do the same thing. We surround you, right? You're under us. That's the strategy, right? And battle started to rage. And Richard, again, very disturbed with this, he starts, let's negotiate. Salahuddin sends his brother. And eventually, Richard and Salahuddin brother, some form of appreciation developed. Richard really appreciated Salahuddin and his men. Because he saw what? Muslims are no infidels. Muslims are chivalrous. They're strong at war. They're chivalrous in nature. They're very courteous. So when he spoke with Salahuddin's brother, he started to kind of, I respect you. You're my enemy. But they had, and Al-Adil appreciated Richard as what? Very courageous, very strong, very determined. On the battlefield, he's very powerful. So he appreciated that aspect. So a kind of negotiation started. And then here is again a game theory political, right? So Richard comes to Al-Adil, I got a proposal, I have a solution. Win-win. Win-win is the best thing, right? I have something all of us can win, right? What is it? He said, here, I have my sister here, Joanne. What if we do the following? I propose you marry my sister. You're the king, she's the queen. You both rule Jerusalem as the king and the queen. And everybody's happy. The Muslims are happy, the Christians are happy. I go home, I didn't lose Jerusalem. Salahuddin, you didn't lose Jerusalem. Win-win. Good suggestion. And Al-Adil says, well, not a bad idea. Get married to your sister, be the king, rule, you leave, right? It looks nice. Let me talk to Salahuddin. And he goes to Salahuddin. And he starts telling Salahuddin, and Salahuddin starts laughing. He's mocking with you. No, he's serious. Right? He's saying, Richard, this doesn't make sense. No, he said he will do it. What do you think is going on here? Anybody can guess the game? Yeah, the game is the following. He wanted to give Al-Adil a suggestion that he knows Salahuddin would say no. Then what happens? Then Al-Adil becomes upset. And then Richard says, see, your brother is not reasonable. Maybe, if you get rid of him, maybe So he wants to divide the Muslims. Do you see the idea? So he's giving him a proposal, expecting Salahuddin to say what? No. And then his next move will be what? Now divide them. So Salahuddin, what do you think he did? Game theory. He said, okay, go tell Richard I agree. I want you to see what it's about. I'm going to give him the response he doesn't expect. I'm going to destroy his strategy. Tell him I agree. So he goes and he says, Alhamdulillah, my brother agrees. Deal. And then Richard taking, okay, didn't expect that. Okay, let me talk to my sister. He didn't even, he said he went talk to his sister. She was so offended, she left to England. Literally, it's like, you expect me to marry an infidel? You're out of your mind, right? She completely left, right? So you can see what Salahuddin did is what? He spoiled the plan by doing what? Reacting in a way that your opponent did not expect. You think about what your opponent wants before you act, right? Those lessons are extremely important. The young generation especially, be careful. Think ahead. Don't just react, right? So that was foiled. But another thing happened. Conrad, Conrad, the Italian knight, the city of Sur, he realized, you know what? This is not going anywhere. And eventually Richard is going to leave. And then what will happen then? Salahuddin is going to come back to me. And I cannot resist Salahuddin. So he sent to Salahuddin, let's make a deal. You leave me in the city of Sur alone. And I will retreat. I'll take all the Italian knights and my people and retreat and leave. And we have a treaty that, you let me be. And Salahuddin, they said, was very happy with this. It divides the Crusaders. He said, done. If you leave, guess what? We'll have a treaty 10 years. I'm not going to attack you. You're safe in your city, right? But leave right now. And Conrad starts the negotiation. And one day, Conrad is like Sunday going to church. After the church, he goes out. He sees some of the people worshiping there. Goes to have lunch with them. One of those monks or whatever gets a dagger, stabs Conrad to death. Who's that? An assassin. Who did that? Now, they said, Salahuddin did that. But we know from our books, Ibn Shaddad said, no, we were so sad that this happened. We had a deal with the man. We were not happy with this. If Salahuddin was to do this, he would do it to who? Richard, not Conrad. Conrad was about to leave. That spoiled our deal. Not only that, what did you think the Franks did now? Look what the Muslims did. Who you think did that? We know actually. Richard is the one that did it. Richard went to the assassins. And because for him it's a win-win. You get rid of one of my opponents, Conrad, right? And it will make the Christians more zealous to fight the Muslims. And we know that because later in his life, he was taken to court for it in Europe. He was accused of this, and this is something he had to pay for. That you contact the assassins, and you are the ones that, you're the one that killed Conrad with them, right? So that's the source of it. So we know that was the plan, right, of Richard. Nevertheless, now Conrad is out of the picture, and we're back again to Richard and his clan, right? And they start, now it's time to head to Jerusalem. And they gather their forces and start marching towards the city of Jerusalem. Once this happened and they left the shore, exactly what Salahuddin predicted happened. They started cutting their communication line, poisoning all the wells, and then what? Surrounding them, attacks day and night. And they could not march. And they were harassed daily. And Salahuddin himself started fortifying the city of Jerusalem and announced, I will be the one inside the city to defend it in case they come. And Richard was again agonized. What do we do? Like the Muslims are now attacking. We're completely surrounded. Our lines of supplies is continuously under attack. We don't have the Mediterranean to protect us. We're surrounded. And Salahuddin keeps winning a battle after a battle. And I'm going quick here, right, in this. And again, negotiations, right? Salahuddin, again, I'm going to skip this because of time. Salahuddin and Richard start again another round of negotiation, right? Richard, give me the city and I will leave. Salahuddin refuses and tells him there is nothing but the sword. No speech of this. I have you where I want, kind of, right? So there is no speech of surrender or anything. And the battle starts to raise. And then the armies of Richard are approaching Jerusalem. Ibn Shaddad describes, despite the agonies, and these are still marching forward. Ibn Shaddad describes this night, he said, I was with the Sultan in the city of Jerusalem, right? And I was with him, and it was nighttime. And I went, because every nighttime, what does the Sultan do? Qiyam, but something else. Why does Ibn Shaddad go to him every night? We have to study. So the Sultan is busy in the morning. He doesn't have time to study. Even Salahuddin in the battlefield had time for ilm. Just think about me. He doesn't have time in the day, let it be in the night. So Ibn Shaddad comes, I came to him and I saw him and he was distressed. And I say, Ya Mawlay, I see you're so distressed about what's going to happen in Jerusalem. He said, yes. He said, okay, take the night off. Why don't you just sleep? Just take some rest tonight and we will resume tomorrow. And Ibn Shaddad says, I go to my tent, right? And he said, I myself, I couldn't sleep, right? And then I came back to the Sultan before Fajr and I found Salahuddin still in the same state, in dua and prayers and distressed, thinking about Jerusalem. He says, Mawlay, you didn't sleep. He says, no, I couldn't. And then at that point, Ibn Shaddad says something occurred to me. So I told the Sultan, this is very personal. Ya Sayyidi, I have an idea. He said, what? He said, look, let the Sultan do the following. It's Jum'ah today, Jum'ah night. It's Jum'ah Fajr time, right? And you are in Jerusalem. So I want you to do the following. You make wudu, right? You go to the Aqsa Mosque. You give charity, right? And between adhan and iqam, you pray 2 rak'ahs. You put your head down in sujood and make dua to Allah. Tell him the following. Ya Rabbi, I've done everything. Inni maghlubun fantasir. You win this. Because Allah is so generous, He will never let down the dua of someone like you. What did Ibn Shaddad say? He combined multiple hadith. I don't know if you're aware. You see what how many hadith he combined here? Friday, Fajr time, making wudu and then give charity. Aqsa Mosque. When does he make the dua? Between adhan and iqama. This is the time where so when does he make dua? In salah where? In sujood. You see what he's combining? He said, I combined everything for you. Do this with this heart. He said, Allah will never let this down. And he said, I watched him going to the Aqsa Mosque, doing exactly that, praying 2 rak'ahs, putting his head down, making intense dua to Allah with tears coming out. He said, after Fajr, a messenger comes, news, what? The army of the Crusaders stopped their march. What happened? They started quarreling. Richard and Philip Augustus and the Templars, can we do this or not? And Richard started saying, it's undoable. No, it's doable. We should do it. We can do it. He said, okay, show me the situation. And they described the city and the fortification. And then they started, and unanimously, everybody came to the conclusion. The conclusion was the following. This is a city, this is Richard's statement. This is a city that is impossible to take as long as Salahuddin is alive and the Muslims are united around him. He said, I can't do it. He's inside, his army is around, we're cut off our supply lines. If I attempt to attack him, it's a city with the armies and I don't have alliance. It's a death trap. The Templars agreed. The most zealous, they said it's impossible. We will never be able to do that. With Salahuddin himself there and the Muslims around him like this, non-doable. And Richard had to do what? I had to pull it out. Was it a strategy or was it the dua of Salahuddin? Or was it both? Do you see the idea? Right? So historians will never tell you about Salahuddin's dua, and they'll tell you what? Well, because of what Salahuddin did to them, and that's why they retreated. But we know from Ibn Shaddad the power of dua also. Right? So then Richard decides to do something. He said, okay, I can't go for Jerusalem. What should I do? Maybe I should go north. Attack Saida and Beirut. As he's taking his troops and going north, Salahuddin opens the gates of Jerusalem, takes his forces, attacks what Richard started building of Jaffa. He was starting to build Jaffa. Salahuddin comes, attacks the city of Jaffa, whatever he's built, he takes the city in 3 days. And I'm going quick. The Battle of Jaffa, he takes the city back from the Franks. Richards hears this, shocked, right? And he says the following, right? He, of course, makes a use. Why did Salahuddin do this, by the way? What's the strategy here? No, you cannot go attack another city. The moment you leave, I attack. I'll put you on your toes, right? You can't even leave. No break, right? And Richard was forced to come back. He comes back, lands beside Jaffa, starts to go to find the battle with Salahuddin. What do you think Salahuddin did? Opened the gates of Jaffa, retreated, went back to Jerusalem. Why? Why didn't he defend Jaffa? What is the strategy again? I don't want another Akka. My strategy is what I did this to force you to come back. It's about Jerusalem. You're here. I'm not going to go into a side battle and you surround me in a minor city, then go. No. Take it. And the moment you leave, I attack again. Do you get the idea? So he switched strategies. Right? You'll get tired, I won't. Right? So he leaves. Richard sends this letter, right, to Salahuddin, telling his commanders, some of the commanders of Salahuddin, telling them the following. This Sultan of yours is a great man. Islam has no greater king on earth mightier than him. By God, he is great. Your Sultan is the greatest Sultan that Islam has. I could not have imagined that he would take Jaffa in 3 months. How did he take it in 3 days? Greet the Sultan for me and tell him, for God's sake, give me what I ask for so we can make peace. This matter must have an end. My lands overseas in England is ruined. I must return. And this has no end in sight. Game theory has something in this quickly. A single game versus a continuous repetitive game. Single game is like we play, you win, and the game ends. Continuous game, what? You win, I play again, and again, and again. And that's change. Basically, that has a completely different rule set. This is not a single game. Salahuddin is playing what? It's not going to end. You take one city, we play again. You take another city, again, and again, and again. So if it costs you X, it costs you $1,000 to win. Maybe it's worth $1,000 is worth. But if I keep playing the game and you 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, then what? You know when you have a car and the car needs $1,000 to fix, what do? My car is worth it. So if you fix it and it breaks again, okay, it breaks again, then what do? The rules change. One time is okay, but if the game is that the car is going to do this every month, the answer is I'm not playing. Right? This is actually, so Salahuddin switched to that. That's my strategy with you, right? And at that point, what happened is something interesting. Richard finally sent to Salahuddin, telling him, okay, I'm tired. We'll have a deal. I'm not going to ask for Jerusalem anymore. You can keep Jerusalem. Here is a new deal. The deal is the following. I keep Akka and Jaffa. You keep Jerusalem. And we're done. And I leave, and we have a truce for 3 years and 3 months. Salahuddin refuses. Nope, no deal. You leave and you give everything back. And Richard is like, no, that's not going to work. And everybody around Salahuddin, all the scholars, agree. They came to Salahuddin and they tell him, accept the deal. Yes, it's not as, but you broke the Third Crusade. You saved Jerusalem. What did they gain? Akka and Jaffa, let them leave. What does it mean that they left? Hundreds of thousands of crusaders came for years and years and years, and all what they can take is what? 1 or 2 cities. And we got rid of them. We broke the counterattack, and Jerusalem is with us. And those cities we'll take later. And Salahuddin refuses. And everybody taking shura, everybody, all scholars, all knights, tell him, we're tired, we're exhausted, their forces are hundreds of thousands, please agree. And Salahuddin reluctantly agrees to the truce with Richard. But then he tells Ibn Shaddad something really powerful. He tells Ibn Shaddad, I refuse to make this truce. Why? He says, I fear to make peace, not knowing what becomes of me. I'm old. And he says, I know I'll make peace with them. I will die. And then he points to his children. And I'm afraid that my own children, every one of them will take a city. Damascus, Egypt, right? And then they will start differing. And they will start arguing. And when there is peace, there is affluency. And when we're affluent, we relax. And when we relax, we put our arms down. and we start to take care of the wealth, and those francs are going to come back. I know them. And they come back, and those children of mine, they'll be divided. And we will lose everything. And they will take Jerusalem again. And he told Ibn Shaddad, if you live long enough, you will see that. That is why I refuse. I'm afraid. I don't see the same resolve. What happens to the Muslims? ليس الفقر أخاف عليكم. The Prophet ﷺ, it is not poverty or hardship that I'm afraid on you of. Rather, it's what? أن تفتح عليكم الدنيا. The time of ease, when things are affluent. That's when Muslims fail. When things are easy, not when things are difficult. Right? But he said, what can I do? Everybody asked me to do this, so I had to agree. So they concluded a truce. The truce is what? 3 years, 3 months. The last statement Richard tells to Salahuddin is the following: I'll be back after 3 years and 3 months. And Salahuddin responds, I'd rather fight you than anybody else. I'll be waiting. Is that a peace treaty? Or what is there a difference between peace and truce? What's the difference? Peace is when I acknowledge, this is what happens today, a two-state solution. I acknowledge you. You acknowledge me. It is infinite. I'm telling you, you have the right to exist. You have the right to exist. We're done. Truce is what? I never acknowledged you. It's what? Temporary ceasefire. But I never said you're okay. See the difference? So when people say, yeah, Salahuddin made peace. He did a truce. But it's very different than what? When I tell my opponent, I acknowledge your existence. Later, if you fight, the opponents will say, you acknowledge my existence. What happened to you? You get the idea? So there is a difference that we have to have in our head. What's my position regarding this? Where do I stand? Do I acknowledge a one-state, two-state for today's solution, right? Our survey that we did for the Muslims, more than 1,500 Muslims responded. The response came. 25% of the Muslims accept a two-state solution today. 50% one-state Palestinian and all the Israelis must leave. 25% one-state Palestinian and the Israelis can live under the Muslims there. So the ratio is what? 75%, but there is 25% today that says what? It's okay to have a two-state. I'm telling you the statistics. I'm not saying what my position is, right? That's where we're at, right? Here. Type. So, by the way, there is a meeting with Balian, the master of the Hospitallers, where Shaddad asks him, after all those years, how many of you came? And he says, we counted more than 600,000. He says, how many died? He said, on your hand, more than 100, 150,000. Due to epidemics and other reasons, a similar number. He said, more than 50% of the people that came died. More than 300,000 Franks died in those battles. Right? It was really bloody, right? It was not something easy or nice. Salahuddin was facing an opponent that was very determined. One of the greatest victories of Salahuddin is what? His non-compromising situation. When Muslims let him down, when nobody came to his aid, and they left him alone to fight Europe, he was still able to persist and prevail and defeat one of the most massive crusades that the Franks did. After that, what does Salahuddin do? Well, back to Damascus, right? He goes back to the city of Damascus. Salahuddin did not visit Damascus for maybe 15 years. And people were so happy. Salahuddin is back. He enters Damascus. They say the following. The governor of Damascus meets Salahuddin, praises him, tells him, I have to show you this. What? He shows him a palace. He tells him, this is a palace I prepared for you. For what? Your retirement, you know. You've done so much. Look, here. It's time for you, like, look, you can have. Salahuddin's response. He looks at this palace and he says what? This is a place built for someone that thinks he's not going to die. And then he says, ما خلقنا لهذا. We were not created for this. We were created to worship Allah. And then he looks at the person. And what money did you use to build this for me? And he fired the governor for doing this. You're not. This is not Salahuddin's character, right? Subhanallah, right? But it tells you a lot about who Salahuddin is, right? Most beloved to people. At this point, Salahuddin had one request. He writes to Al-Qadi al-Fadil, I have one. He never asked anything for himself all those years. Finally, he says, I have one thing I want to ask for myself. What is it? I want to go for Hajj. He never went for it. He didn't have time. When? He said, I want to go for Hajj. We have peace. I want to go visit the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the one that I want to see the grave of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I want to go to see the Kaaba. I never saw the Kaaba. Salahuddin, what he did for the Haram is amazing. He established hotels throughout. If you're going for Hajj and you're passing in Egypt or Damascus, free hotels, free food for everybody. Literally. The Hujjaj are my guests, he would say that. Your expenses covered, don't worry. Once you reach my kingdom, once you enter where Salahuddin is, don't worry about where you're staying. It's all free. State is taking care of that. He spends a lot of money on the people worshipping in Mecca and Medina, right? And he wanted to go. And the response from the scholar is, it's non-permissible for you to do Hajj. It's haram. Huh? What? What? It's why? He said, because the Franks are still there and they betray. You leave. If they know that you took your commanders and went for Hajj, they will attack Jerusalem. And we will be back to square one. It's not permissible for you to leave us in that state. So request denied. You have to stay and rebuild the cities and be on the look for the Franks. And it broke the heart of Salahuddin. The only request he wanted, to see Mecca, the one that liberated Jerusalem, prayed in Jerusalem, Al-Aqsa. Can I pray in Medina and Mecca? And the answer is, duty calls to it. You cannot do that. Today you can do something Salahuddin could not do. The Sultan could not do. SubhanAllah, right? And SubhanAllah, Salahuddin then spends his effort in what? Rebuilding. Something interesting happened. Remember the people in Akka, Baha'uddin Qaraqosh, right? The people that Richard killed. To the surprise of Salahuddin, the leader, Baha'uddin Qaraqosh, appears. And they spared him. Why? Because he's a leader and he can pay. Right? So he said, they spared me and I made a deal with them that they would free me and I would pay them 80,000 dinars. The interesting part of this is the following. He meets Salahuddin, they hug, and then Baha'uddin tells him, yes, Sayyidi, I have to go so I can collect the 80,000 dinars and give it to them. What is the surprise here? There's something really interesting, really deep. They betrayed, right? They captured you as a prisoner. They did what they did. If I was in his position, what would I do? Ma'a salama, right? What 80,000 dinar, ya akhi? Khalas, right? But what he was a Muslim, follows his word. I gave them my word, I'm going to pay 80,000 dinars. I will do it. And I found that very respectful, right? And Salahuddin starts, again, visiting all the cities, taking care of all Damascus and Cairo, and then the season of Hajj comes. And Salahuddin himself, if I can't go for Hajj, let me meet the pilgrims. Let me watch them. Let me make sure the roads are okay. And he rides and he starts meeting them. And he said he watches the pilgrims come and he starts to cry. Can't go, right? And then something happened. It was cold. Salahuddin was not taking care of his himself. And he started to catch some form of cold. Started to cough, started to feel sick, and people were worried, started to get some fever, and people took him to Damascus, and they started calling the doctors. The doctor of Salahuddin? Who knows who's the doctor of Salahuddin? Very famous doctor. He's not a Muslim, by the way. He's Jewish. Maimonides. The great theologian of the Jew. He served Salahuddin Al-Ayubi. Salahuddin was very accepting. You're a good doctor, so be it. Right? So the doctors come and they say, this is serious. And the Sultan has to be put on a bed rest. And the sickness starts to increase. And Salahuddin starts to get a fever, right? And he starts calling people. He starts calling his son. And he starts calling, I want to meet my flag bearer. And we'll see why. And it looks like the Sultan is really, was he giving his will? What is going on? And then all of a sudden, the Sultan falls unconscious. And they describe everybody is worried. Ibn Shaddad says, it looked like it's dark. Damascus is dark. And everybody is worried about what is going to happen to the Sultan. And he liked the Quran. Every night, Salahuddin would hear 2 or 3 juz. Remember, they don't have MP3s and YouTube, and you don't have Mashari al-Afasi on. If you want to hear Quran recited properly, how do you do it back in the day? You have to get a physical sheikh. There is nothing else. So he had someone accompany him every night so that I hear the Quran recited at least 2-3 juz. He loved the Quran so much. So they said they brought a Quran reciter beside him. And they said he would recite and the Sultan is unconscious. Whenever he would come on the attributes of Allah, Allah Azizun Rahim, he said Sahih, Sahih, and falls back in unconscious. Until one day he was reciting and he came to the verse, هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. Says the Sultan smiled and he gave off his last breath. And the great Sultan Salahuddin passed away. He died that night. When that happened, Ibn Shaddad said it was a great sadness across the city. He said, I used to hear people say, I will ransom you with my life. And I used to believe that this is not true till this day. Because I saw in myself, I would gladly give my soul if it was to save Salahuddin. Everybody was crying. Muslims, Christians, Jews, Franks, Crusaders. Everybody loved Salahuddin. The Haram was in tears, making dua for him, both Mecca and Medina. The beloved Sultan of the Muslims passed away. But then something happened. The flag bearer of Salahuddin appears and says, Salahuddin ordered me to do something. What is it? He ordered me before he dies to carry his flag and visit every single city and gather people. He said, told him, gather people around. You're the one that carried my flag when I'm alive. Carry it when I die. Go to every one of my cities. Raise the flag and tell them, this is the flag of the great Sultan Salahuddin, the ruler of Egypt and Sham, the one that have hundreds of thousands of soldiers. And he died. And he took nothing of the life of this world except a piece of rag that he was shrouded with. And he went under the ground. And even that is going to disintegrate. Remind Muslims of what? Death. It's not worth it. Everybody is going to die. كل من عليها فان. Salahuddin's advice, one of the most powerful things he did, his son. He went to his son, and this is when I read this, I was shocked. Before he dies, he gets his son for his will, right? And he tells him, son. And I thought he's going to tell him what? Defend Jerusalem. Fight the Franks, right? Look at the advice of Salahuddin. I advise you to have taqwa of Allah, as it's the source of all good. I command you with what Allah commanded you, for it's the way to your own salvation. I warn you from bloodshed. Do not shed blood on the one that hundreds of thousands of the telling, be careful of shedding blood. Don't kill unnecessary. Don't become a murderer. Let not war turn you to what? Become desensitized that you kill everybody. I warn you from blood. And then he says the following. And this, when I read this, he said, I ask you to protect. And I thought it's going, I ask you to protect Jerusalem. I ask you to protect the hearts of people. I command you to protect and guard the hearts of your emir. What is he speaking about? Have you ever heard a politician telling you this? If I go to I'm going to do everything to protect your spirituality and your heart and make sure you don't have any disease of the heart. And saying the most valuable thing as a ruler to protect is not Jerusalem. What is it? The hearts of your people, the hearts of your emir. Envy, status, wealth, greed, arrogance. Make sure that their hearts are clean. It's your responsibility to take care of their hearts before their wealth. And then he tells him what? Do not envy anyone, for death leaves no one. Be mindful of what is between you and people, for it will only be forgiven if they forgive. As for that which is between you and Allah, Allah is the most forgiving and most merciful. This is who Salahuddin was. Now, the lesson here is what? There is a very powerful lesson here. Oftentimes, when we do something for the sake of Allah, I build a masjid for the sake of Allah. It's good. But the correct thing, what is the goal? The pleasure of Allah. What is the means? Building a masjid. Oftentimes in spirituality, the means turns out to be the goal. If I'm not careful, then I start what? I love the masjid so much. You have to take care of the masjid. Be careful, the masjid is dirty. On my deathbed, what do I tell my child? Take care of the masjid I built. You get what I'm saying? This is not the correct advice. The correct advice is the masjid was a one way to Allah. Take care of what Allah commanded you. You get the idea? On the other hand, you find other Franks and Crusaders on their deathbed. We have that, right? They were saying what? Forward, forward, to Jerusalem, forward. What's the problem here? Yeah, but like the thing is, again, it's supposed to be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So if on my deathbed, all what I'm telling my kid is what? Instead of saying La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, I'm telling him, take care of the masjid, take care of the money, take care of the factory, take care of your kids' halal things. But those are what means to a goal. Salahuddin did not mention Jerusalem at all. Do you see that? Because he was doing everything for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's really, really pure tawheed. It's a very high level that he reached. Right? So, Al-Qadi al-Fadil comes to Salahuddin's children. Right? And he describes when the Sultan died, he did not have enough money for his burial. All the money of the Sultan was given away in charity. He said, we collected money from the scholars to buy his own shroud. And he said when it was time for his burial, he said, I could not make myself wash the body. And it was the funeral, Salat al-Janazah, how long it took? The whole day. Because people kept coming, praying and leaving. And other people come, pray and leave. People came from all over the cities, from Aleppo, from Al-Mosul. People traveled. When they heard the news, we said, Salat al-Janazah continued. People didn't stop coming. It took one day for people. The masjid was packed and they pray and leave, pack and pray and leave. And he said when it was time to lower him to his grave, Al-Qadi al-Fadil went beside him and put beside him his sword and said the following, هذا سيف تتكي عليه إلى الجنة. This is a sword that you lean on as you enter Jannah بإذن الله. Right? And Al-Fadil said, I was so grieved, I could not speak. And his children came to me and he told them this statement. He said, I am so grieved. This an affluent qadi, poetry, Quran, hadith, his letters are amazing. We have the letters of Al-Fadil to Salahuddin, amazing, right? Like his are very articulate. He was at the point said, I don't have a word to speak of. He said, however, I have one thing to tell you. If you stay united, then the biggest of our grievances will be the loss of Salahuddin. If you disunite, the least of our grievances will be the loss of Salahuddin. Do you understand what he's telling them? You get if you do not stay united, we will face calamity. The Franks will be back. We will be destroyed again. Right? What happened later? What did the days bring? Right? According to them. And this is again a quick thing before I think we have like 3 minutes. So, the fears of the Sultan. What the Sultan was afraid of did happen. Decades later, family of Salahuddin started fighting with each other. One of them gives Jerusalem back to the Franks in return of aiding him in fighting his brother in Egypt. That happened again. Exactly what he predicted, right? And the Ummah went into, yes, this array, and brother fights a brother, and Sham and Egypt got to split, and we have a Muslim fighting a Muslim, and the Franks are there, right? And Jerusalem fell again to the hands of the Franks. Unfortunately, they took it by force. The city that Salahuddin defended years was given to 300 knights for free. Just help me against my brother. So that did happen. What Salahuddin predicted, unfortunately, happened. Ibn Shaddad lived long enough to actually see it. Unfortunately for him, right? But something else happened. The wrath of the Mongols. The Muslim faced an even deeper, much difficult strategy or much difficult situation. The Franks came back. And this time, they came for Egypt itself. Right? Egypt is going to be attacked by the Franks. And the Mongols rose on the east. Another topic, right? And the Mongols eventually started marching and they took the city of Baghdad. And it seemed at one point that the Muslims are done. You have the Franks at Egypt at one point. Baghdad fell. They're in the city of Sham. And Egypt is about to fall. Ibn al-Athir, when he writes about this, he describes it. He writes the following. I'm writing about the condolences of Islam. You know what he's saying? He's saying, it's over. I'm just writing, khalas, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, Islam, I'm just saying, na'i of Islam, we're done. I don't think there is a way out of this. Maybe this is the sign of the day of judgment. Maybe the Mahdi is going to come, because there is no hope. Nevertheless, Islam persisted. Why? The rulers were not good. Something else Salahuddin did, Nuruddin Zinki did, Nizam al-Mulk did, persisted. The schools that Salahuddin built, the scholars that Al-Izz ibn Abd al-Salam was there at that time. The scholars persisted. People were still good. See, the worst thing is you have a bad ruler, bad people. Lesser of evil thing, good ruler, bad people. Because you know Ali ibn Abi Talib, right? Is Ali ibn Abi Talib a good ruler? Right? And you have any doubts about that? I don't think so, right? People ask him a question. Said, how come when it was the days of Abu Bakr, things were good? The days of Umar, the days were good. Uthman and yourself, look at the Muslims. They started fighting each other and all the fitnas and the Shias and this. What's wrong with you? You know, like they were good, what's wrong with you? You know his answer? Said, yes. When Abu Bakr and Umar was there, me and Uthman were under them. When I am here, you are under me. You got the answer? What do you want? Problem is you, right? But there is a third situation where the ruler is bad, but the establishments of the nations are intact. What do I mean? Scholars are good. Hospitals are good. The akhlaq of people are good. So the followers of Salahuddin, you would see them fighting, but the cities are safe. You get it? It's all politics. So what happened? A new power came to, and this is a very interesting part. I'll finish with this. The rise of the Mamluks. At the time of the Crusaders had the Templars. You know, this order, mighty, right? The counter of this was something Nuruddin started. Nuruddin started to do what? Like Baha'u'ddin Qaraqosh was one of them. Baha'u'ddin Qaraqosh was a young Christian boy, sold in the marketplace. Christian. Nuruddin made it a point. I will take my money, go buy some Christian slaves. For what? For your service? No. I will take them. And I'm not going to treat them like slaves in the West. No. I'm going to teach them Islam. I'm going to send them to school. I'm going to give them food. I'm going to train them in martial arts. I'm going to give them the best education. So later they grow, and then I would free them, and they would serve the Muslims. So, and he started to do what? Started to buy more of those Mamalik. He would buy them, not to serve him, you see. So he would teach them fiqh, martial arts, sword fighting, being a knight, chivalry, right? Science. And therefore, those young kids loved their master. You get it? They were extremely loyal. In the battlefield, some of the toughest knights of Nuruddin and Salahuddin was those Mamalik. Because they were brought with what? You see, like their life is about what? From day one, best food, highest education, martial arts to the highest level, day and night, physical fitness to the highest level. You're trained to serve. So when it came to the battlefield, they had a high respect for scholars. They loved Islam, and they were excellent when it came to martial arts. And they were so dedicated, and they loved their master. Eventually, Salahuddin was to do the same. The followers of Salahuddin carried that over. Those Mamalik eventually takes over Egypt. They become the rulers, and they defeat the Franks and the Crusaders. And they restore the Khilafah back. And that's another chapter, right? The Mamluks would rule, something that Salahuddin and Nuruddin Zinki started. Right? The final thing that I want to leave you with is this phrase: the madrasa saved Islam. One very important, those scholars that work together. This is what saved Islam on the long run, not only in the times of Salahuddin, for decades and maybe centuries to come. I'll stop here, inshallah. So, jazakumullah khair for attending. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this of benefit for us. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us live long enough to see Jerusalem coming back to the Muslims. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to extend our lives that we can all pray in Al-Aqsa Mosque. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make one of us, maybe one of the kids here, the new Salahuddin Al-Ayubi. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خيرا.